everybody. Welcome to Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Coach Tripp, along with the four-wheel drive show we usually have Wednesday nights. We're going to show it Wednesday and Saturday. My good friend Bill Pendock, my teammate, Liverpool High School, right below. And this is our guest today, Coach Bob Casullo, longtime high school, college, and pro football coach. Coach, thanks for joining the show today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Man, we're going to have a blast. Let's get everybody to get to know you, Coach. You grew up in Little Falls, New York. Talk about your mom and dad and your siblings, and then we'll talk about you being a sports star at Little Falls High School.
Well, yeah, I grew up in Little Falls, New York, and mom and dad were born and raised there. And I have a sister that is 2 years younger than me, and we grew up together. And then I was in seventh grade, and along came my brother, Dave, who he claims was a mistake. But, we never addressed that with mom and dad, but it was nice growing up in Little Falls and small school, similar to what you guys would know as like a Salve, that size school.
Right.
And I played football and basketball. I started playing baseball, but gave it up because we actually had a beer distributorship in our family my grandfather owned, and I always worked there. I started out sorting bottles and then loading trucks, and then I actually had my own route as I got older in college. So I gave up playing baseball for dollars in my pocket to go out and enjoy myself. And that's pretty much what it was.
Coach, did that work did that help you in football? Because you went on to be an All-American fullback at Brockport State.
Division III. Yep. And, I always wanted to go to Syracuse. Probably could have walked on, but never would have. I'm short, fat, and slow, and I'm a running back, which makes it 0 for 3, But, so I went to Brockport in Division III football, and we had a great coach, an old retired Army guy, and we held our own. In those days, it's not like today. There was, other than Cortland in New York State, we played Pennsylvania schools that are all now Division II schools. We were 500 my junior and senior year, and I played running back, believe it or not, and did very well, and I was honored in 2011 to get inducted to the Brockport Sports Hall of Fame. So wow. I guess at one point in time, like all of us, we had some athletic ability,
Holy cow. So your high school coach and your college coach was a military guy. Boy, a lot of them were back then, weren't they? Yep. I mean, from Frank Leahy to Bear Bryant, my coach at Bama, they were all, in the Navy. They were all service guys, and they all ran military-style training camps.
Yeah, and I can tell you, we didn't have 2-a-days. We had 3-a-days. I remember those times, and hitting the sleds, and I mean, it's so much different now. But I'll tell you what. And I know you guys played for, George O'Leary, who I worked with later on, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the old-time coaches in the 60s, when I grew up in the early 70s, I mean, there was no, hey, come on, put your arm around, and hey, how you doing? Nah. It was always a butt kicking, and, you screw up. You screwed up, and you knew about it. You didn't have to be reminded, but they reminded us,
So you got out of Brockport State, Coach, and then you decided to get into coaching. How did you decide to get into coaching? Who was your mentor? And talk about your high school years, because you coached there like 8 before you got your first break at Syracuse. Talk about your high school coaching.
Well, my high school coach, Coach Dave McCauley, was very influential in my decision. When I went to college, I had 2 goals in mind. I either wanted to be a coach or I wanted to be an FBI agent. That's quite a combination, So in college, I majored in physical education, obviously, and I majored in political science. And I stayed in touch with my high school coach, and he said, Bob, you need to get into coaching. I was a quarterback in high school, so I I had a different perspective on the game. Long story short, I became a high school coach, and I went to Henniger High School out of college, 1973, coached with Tom Acey, Joe Casamano, Dale Drypulcher, Tony Grosso. We had a hell of a football staff at Henniger. And as you guys well know, in the very first sectional city-county, we were undefeated. You were undefeated. We played at Coyne Field, an epic high school football game. I believe it was 14-8. And on that field, between you guys and us, I think there was 7 Division I football players, which in central New York is unheard of, Unheard
of.
It was a classic. And of course, like everybody else young, I wanted to be a head coach. And I went to Baldwinsville for 2 years in 1983 and 1984, took over from legendary coach John R. Carroll, and we had very successful 2 years. We were 14-3-1 in 2 years.
Wow.
Went to the sectional playoffs both years. And then, George O'Leary was coaching Billy and you guys up at Syracuse at the time. And he called me and he said, hey, we got a thing up here called the volunteer assistant coach. Would you be interested? And I, at the time I had 2 little kids and my wife were both teaching. And long story short, I had interviewed at Colgate for a position. And then George had arranged, I met with Coach McPherson, who I didn't know, but I went up there and we had a nice interview. He brought me back with my wife, and that was the kickstart. I was a volunteer coach for 13 months, and that started my career.
Wow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Billy, you got anything to add? Because you went into the law enforcement and coaching, kind of like Bob was thinking about.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Coach about backing up a little bit and going back to his Baldwinsville days. If he had any memories of anybody pissing him off, maybe he wanted to take a swing at a guy back then. I don't know.
Parents could piss you off more than anything.
I'll give you 2 quick examples. The first example, when I got the job, Joe Coleman, God rest his soul, was the principal, and he wanted me to teach 6 phys ed classes out of 8 periods. I says, Joe, I can't do that and run a football program. I'll tell you what, I'll teach 5 classes and I'll do lunchroom duty. And he goes, what the hell is lunchroom duty? I said, well, don't you have monitors in the lunchroom? He goes, Bob, this is Baldwinsville. This ain't the city of Syracuse. Because the coaches were always lunch monitors in Henniger to keep the peace. You know what I mean? Right. So strange enough, he agreed to it. So then the first year there, we were out in the practice fields, which were parallel to these nice, beautiful homes in Baldwinsville. And about 4 days, about the 4th day into my start, Joe calls me in. He says, Bob, he says, 2 things got to happen. You got to stop swearing or you got to quit. He says, and he had a whole bunch of messages on his desk, phone messages from parents along the side of the practice fields. Get rid of this guy. He's no good. He's cursing. He's swearing. We got to close our windows. So I said, I got a solution. We moved the practice fields way down close into this. It was like a watershed pit, and we had the groundskeeper line it, so now we can curse our brains out, and nobody can hear us.
That was a good solution for you guys.
Yeah, Baldwinsville and my assistant coach, I had Tony Grosso and I had Carl Sanfilippo. How about Carl just retired this past weekend? 40 years.
Did he retire?
He retired. Yeah, he did. Yep.
Well, I thought they'd carry him out of there.
Give him a hand for all the impact. Yeah, let's give him a hand.
Yep, he did a great job.
Let's give him a hand for all that impact he had on the kids.
Yeah.
Where'd you get all these Italians? I know we played against Italians in Henniger, man, but Gosh, all these Italian coaches you got, Bob?
Well, that was Italian. Henniger was a good mix. You guys would have fit in there perfectly because it was half Italian, and at that time it was half black athletes that had just, because of the busing situation, and every one of them were great kids. I mean, we never had a problem, black, white. They all meshed together because they had a similar goal in mind. And of course, at the time we were winning, and winning, as you well know, heals all dissension and everything because you're winning, and it was just, and then we had Grosso, Casamento, Casullo, Tom Acey was Lebanese, and then Dale Drypoulter was a mutt. We used to call him the mutt. He was English, Irish, everything. But we had a good time, boy. I'll tell you, we had a great time.
So then you go on. Go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Coach one, just not to get off the subject quick, but the whole thing goes around the circle because I had coaches' kids on my staff at CNS. I was just wondering how they were doing now. I lost track of Rocco and
Jamie.
Jamie. Pardon me?
Rocco and Jamie.
Jamie, yeah. How they doing, Coach?
They're doing very well. Thank you for asking. Down here, Rocco is a head coach at Coral Glades High School. He was at the famous St. Thomas Aquinas for years.
Right.
Won, I think, 2 or 3 state championships. Wow. And then he left and he went down to this Miami Mater Academy, which was a growing program. He stayed there for 3 or 4 years, and now he's at a school. It's called Coral Glades High School, which is a relatively new high school in Coral Springs, and he got it during COVID, and it's been a process. He went 3-7 this year. The previous 2 years, he went 1-9, and then in an abbreviated year, I think he went 1-4. But his JV team was 9-0, so he's excited about the future. And then Jamie lives in Cicero, New York, with his wife and 2 boys, and he works at West Genesee High School, and he works with Coach Joe Corley at West Genesee. Jamie works with the offense, and he was the head coach at West Hill for a few years. In fact, we just talked recently, one of his star players, Casey Rogers, just got brought up by the New York Giants. He was on the practice squad.
Wow.
So he called Jamie, and they had a nice conversation. But they're both doing well, and, now that this Baldwinsville job is open, Jamie's very interested, and let's see what happens.
Wow, they both became football coaches. Holy cow, Coach!
Yep. I'll tell you, Paulie, two great kids. I had them, and Coach, a lot of I've had a lot of head trauma, and I don't remember exactly where each one played. I see things now with the vaguely in my memory, but can you refresh my memory? What positions did both of them play?
Rocco played middle linebacker.
Middle backer. Okay.
Yep. And his team was undefeated his senior year. And then Jamie played wide receiver, and they were 9-1 his senior year.
Right. Okay. So it's coming back to me now.
Yep.
It's coming
and
back.
Then Jamie went to Buffalo State. He played 4 years there with Jerry Boyce as the head coach and had a nice career. Rocco went to college, and he dabbled with it for a little bit, but then he transferred to the University of Central Florida and just got his degree, and he gave up playing, but he got back in the coaching ranks. So they both made out well. Thank you.
Wow. I wanted to name my son Rocco, but my wife wouldn't let me.
Hey, Rocco Tripoli would be a great name.
I know, right? Oh, my God. All right, let's talk 1985. George O'Leary brought you up there. We had us. Billy's one of the oldest, actually the longest player that Coach ever coached for 7 years. Billy had him. But Coach was a huge influence on not only us, even to this day, but on hundreds and hundreds of other players and coaches. Tell us a funny O'Leary story, and then
Oh my God.
talk about George and his coaching characteristics.
Here's the most interesting thing. George, when he left Syracuse, obviously I was disappointed. You know, he was kind of like a mentor, a confidant, and you know, he always said, "Hey, you never know what the future holds." So fast forward, it was 1994, and he was the interim head coach at Georgia Tech. Got appointed during the year, and then they made it official at the end of the season, which was like early November. And I remember I was coaching at Syracuse, and we were preparing for our last game of the year against West Virginia. And honest to God, this is a true story. I got home that night during the week. I don't know, it was a Tuesday or Wednesday. And I said to my wife, I said, "Pat, did George O'Leary call by any chance?" She goes, "George O'Leary? Why would he call?" I said, "Well, he just got appointed the head coach at Georgia Tech. And, you know, he kind of always intimated that if he got a job, he'd hire me."
Right.
Don't you realize, you want to know, it was about 11:30, the phone rings. It's George O'Leary. I swear to God, this is a true story. And he said, "You coming?" How about that for an interview, huh? And I said, "You just tell me when and where, and I'll be there." And I'll tell you something. It was just recently, I signed my contract on December 7th, 1994, right after our season. And obviously, that's such a great, famous date in American history.
Right.
So last couple days ago, December 7th, was my 30th anniversary for signing with Georgia Tech. How about that?
Wow, that's amazing, Coach. And then you spent 4 years there. Talk about your 4 years at Georgia Tech under George. Was that the year you guys won the national title there?
No. That was in 1990. They won the national title.
Okay.
But let me tell you, just to give you an idea of what we did there, when George took the program over, they were 1-10, and the one win they had, they beat a 1AA school.
Wow.
4 years later, I left and went to Michigan State. That year, we were 10-2. We were co-champs of the ACC, and we beat Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl.
Wow.
And the year before that, we were 8-5, beat West Virginia in a blockbuster bowl. So we were 6-5, 5-6, 8-5, 10-2. And George, and after I left, George had many more years of success, you know. Yeah. But he was he did a great job of I want to say, how can I say this? Not only organizing the program, but he always had the knack and the ability, in my opinion, to foresee ahead of time what he wanted. You know, how he wanted things to be done. He was a hard ass, you know,
right.
You know,
right.
I remember he incorporated a philosophy from Tom Coughlin. You couldn't wear sunglasses on the field. Well, I wear glasses, and I've worn them for 100 years, and they were progressive, and they were also shaded. So they changed per the sunlight. So I'm on the field coaching, and of course they turn dark like sunglasses. He said, Come here. I said, "What?" He goes, "Get rid of those sunglasses." I said, "George, they're not sunglasses. They're progressive glasses." And I get them, you know, I don't want to get headaches. I have 4 different visions. So they change from light to dark.
Yeah.
Let me see those. So, come on, he goes, "Jesus, you're blind." I says, "I know." So that was how I got to keep my sunglasses on. He was tough, but he was fair. I can tell you that.
He had 2 other things that I think that only great coaches possess. One is the foresight you mentioned. I had Bobby Bowden on my show, and the foresight that he had, even after he retired, was unbelievable. But all the great coaches can see things that other coaches can't. That's number one. Number two, George had that innate ability to measure a kid's heart more than I could see. Like Coach Bryant was the best at it. He was better than Coach O'Leary. But he had a knack for talent. George could spot talent. He took a kid from a high school that I was coaching here at Pensacola, Catholic high school, Josh Sitton, and took Josh Sitton to Central Florida. Josh became All-Pro and a Pro Bowler and a Super Bowl winner. Bobby, you saw it closer than I did. Because Coach O'Leary had an eye for talent, didn't he?
Yep. And what's my first year there, his most redeeming positive quality was his hiring of his staff. I didn't know anybody on the staff except John Anselmo at the time. I knew none of the other guys. None. I had no idea who they were. But as you worked together and you learned about each other, they were all outstanding football coaches in their respective linebackers, secondary, defensive line, offensive, et cetera, et cetera. He put together our first staff in 1995, and I have a Georgia Tech file folder. Our staff was voted the staff of the year in the ACC that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
well,
he had the ability to recognize, like you said, not only in the players, but in the coaches. And when we used to have these recruiting meetings, he would introduce the staff by saying, before I introduce these guys, I'm going to tell you that between the 9 of them, they've got 276 years of coaching experience. So he was big on experienced coaches and also the ability to recruit. You know, when we went out recruiting, and George was good in the homes. You know, he was very good in the homes. When I say, hey, George, I got this guy, I got this kid, yada, 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 down here, bop, boop. And when it came down, you only had one visit with the head coach at that time. So you had to pick and choose when you brought him in. And he was very good at closing the deals. He did a great job, you know.
You know, one thing I want to add that when you talk about that, I think he might have picked a lot of that up back in his Syracuse days because, and I don't say a lot of good things about Coach Mack. I was never a Mack guy because I was a Maloney guy. But one thing I got to say for Coach Mack, and I will say this, he brought in guys around him that you look at the staff that we had up there, all them guys went on to be maybe Hall of Fame coaches.
Right. Absolutely.
I'd say 60% of them guys.
You're 100% correct, Bill. And you know, when you look at Coach Mack's staff, okay, and then when Paul took it over, how many of us went on to coach in the NFL? And then you look at Georgia's staff and how many of his guys went on to coach in the NFL. Right. That was and honestly, a lot of guys, not a lot of guys, but some of the guys that never coached in the NFL didn't want to coach in the NFL. They could have had an opportunity, but they were very happy staying in the college ranks. You know,
Paulie, you look at besides Coach Casullo, you look at Tom Coughlin, you look at Tressel, you look at O'Leary, you look at Edsel, you look at all. You know, you got
Dave Campbell,
Doug Marone. On and on. Well, yeah, you're right, man. You know, Coach Brian always gave his staff props, and he always had a great staff. His tree, Saban's tree, growing like crazy. Coach, in 1999, who was the head coach of Michigan State, and what made you go to the NFL in the Oakland Raiders in 2000?
You know, Paul, people ask me these questions all the time, and at the time, you don't think about it. You just do things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then in retrospect, when people say, well, how did you get to Michigan State? How did you get to the pros? Yada, yada. And you stop and think about it. And I got to be honest with you. I'm from Little Falls, New York. Okay. There's times I sit there and I go, how the hell did this happen? You know? Anyways,
Hey, Bobby, I know what you mean, man. I'm the same way. When how did I ever go to Alabama and play in the league? I have no idea. Are you kidding me? I was such a slow, fat, dumb, weak, wild, weird walk on. That's ridiculous.
My question to Triple E is, how the hell are you still alive? That's my
You're not in jail? You're not in jail? I left Syracuse. If I went to Syracuse University, I might have been, dead or in jail or both.
Paul, that's a similar story in my career. Last year, 2023, I was privileged and honored to be inducted into the Greater Syracuse Sports Hall of Fame. And one of the things I said was, had I stayed in Syracuse University, I never would have got into the Hall of Fame. Okay. Right. And there, I have this old saying, you can't equate comfort with success.
Right.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with comfort. I could have probably stayed at Syracuse for, 20, 25 years and been very comfortable, never had to move, raise my kids. And, but you can't equate success with comfort, in my opinion.
Absolutely, Coach.
To get back to your question on 99, Nick Saban was the head coach at Michigan State. He actually interviewed me the year before in 98, okay, to go to Michigan State, and he ended up hiring somebody else. Oh, my God, I'm on low battery charger here. What's going on? That's not good.
Plug her in, Coach. Sorry,
I did. It's plugged in. I don't understand.
Okay. Wow, Coach. So talk about Coach Saban.
Well, he's a good guy. He really is. He's a guy like George.
Tough, high standards.
Very intense. He's going to tell you what he says. He's going to tell you how he perceives it. And I don't want to get lost here. I'm trying to fix this. There we go. That should be a little better.
Cool.
But he's good guy. Good guy. All the coaches, and if you want to go through the sequence, but so we go to Michigan. I left Georgia Tech. We were 10-2. We were co-champs of the ACC. We beat Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl. I go to Michigan State. We're co-champs in the Big Ten. We're 10-2. We beat Florida in the Citrus Bowl. So I go back-to-back staffs, 10-2. Sitting in my office, Nick had left. That was when he did his great. He left to go to LSU. And what happened was we were recruiting. We were done. It was February. Bobby Williams was appointed the head coach. And what happens is I get it. He calls me in his office and he says, "Hey, I got a call from John Gruden with the Oakland Raiders. He wants to interview you." So I actually, Jim Haslett from New Orleans Saints called me that same time. So I interviewed at both places, and I ended up getting the job at the Oakland Raiders, which is the one I wanted. And for the next 10 years, I went Oakland Raiders, New York Jets, Seattle Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 Super Bowls, which I'll tell you this, everybody and their brother, I wish every coach had the opportunity of coaching in the Super Bowl.
Wow, how blessed. How lucky and blessed, Coach, to coach in 2 Super Bowls. Like you just mentioned, most coaches don't get to coach in one of them.
Nope, you're right. You're right.
Coach, what year were you with the Jets?
2004. Herm Edwards was the coach.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I love Herm Edwards, man. I love Herm. Talk about Herm and Curtis Martin. I love Curtis Martin.
Curtis Martin, a wonderful, wonderful guy. Just a great guy. And Herm was a player's coach. When the first staff meeting we had, when I went there, he said, "You guys take care of the coaching. You guys take care of your positions. Make sure the players play. I'll take care of the locker room."
Wow.
Right.
Couldn't ask for anything better than that. He was he was a player's coach.
Yeah.
Took care of the locker room, and that was awesome. You know,
Coach, you coach many positions, not a whole lot. Tight end, special teams. What is your favorite, and who is some of the best tight ends that you've ever seen?
Well, I was known for a special teams coach, to be honest with you. The best tight end I coached in college was Chris Gedney, by far. You know,
from
the year I
Liverpool High
coached him,
School, the great Chris Gedney. Yeah, talk about Chris.
well, the year I coached him, he made All-American first team. I'm a little worried about this computer, Paul. I don't know what's going on here.
All right, Coach. You go out. We'll have a part 2 next time if you go out.
Yeah, right. Okay. If I go off, I'd really like to continue this, but if I go off, I'd like to do it again. You know.
Okay.
But Chris, you talk about an athlete now. Oh my God, he could do anything. He was phenomenal. You know, he was phenomenal. And we used to have these inter squad basketball tournaments in Manley Fieldhouse, and he was the best basketball player. You know,
he reminds me of Pete Holohan. You remember Pete Holohan?
Yeah, sure I do. Yeah.
Oh my God, Pete could throw the ball 80 yards, high jump 6'6", and Digger wanted him to play basketball at Notre Dame.
Yep.
Pete Holohan and Chris Gedney got to be the 2 best athletes come out of Liverpool.
They're good ones. That's a good analogy right there.
But that's a tough statement, Paulie. There's a lot of them that come out of there. You know,
I know, but them 2 could those 2.
Well, you're right. I gotta put Pete as number 1. I gotta put Pete up there. You know?
Yep. All right.
Imagine if Pete had George O'Leary for his head coach.
Woo! Well, George was there a couple years earlier. Man, turned it around. Holy cow! Favorite place to live and coach. What was your favorite place, Coach? Out of all the places,
I gotta admit, I loved Oakland. John Gruden. The first 2 years with Oakland, we were damn good. The 3rd year, we were damn good. And I'm not going to get into what happened after that. I coached 1 more year there, and then we all left. The head coach was fired. It was a shit show. I don't know if I can swear on this show, but it was a mess. Sure. It was a mess. And but my first 3 years at Oakland and my 2 years in Seattle with Mike Holmgren, who is up for the Hall of Fame this year, and you can understand why, you know, those were my 2 best things. The only problem was I was 3,000 miles away from everybody I knew.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And like when I left Seattle, you know, Mike called me in his office and he wanted me to stay. He said, look, I'll give you another year on your contract. And I said, Mike, I didn't like the general manager. In fact, a year later, Mike was done. He retired a year later.
Right.
And, you know, I said, Mike, I need to get back where if you have a 3-4 day weekend, which is very rare in the off season, I want to be able to, go to Fort Lauderdale. I want to be able to visit my parents at the time, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Mike was good enough in after the season, he would let me go once a month. He would let me leave Thursday night, and I'd have to be back Tuesday morning staff meeting.
Wow.
So I take the red eye Thursday night, okay, and I take the last flight out Monday afternoon, okay, and I would do that once a month in the off season, never during the season, you know. Plus, for my family to come and see the games, like I was fortunate to get everybody to come to the 2 Super Bowls, but just to come to a Sunday game, it didn't happen because I was so far away. The only time they came to games was when we played Buffalo or we played the Giants or we played Philadelphia. I got them tickets to come to the games. I wanted them to be a part of it and enjoy it,
Right. Wow, that's awesome, Coach. Hey, any advice for like a young coach coming up that wants to be a college or coach in the NFL? You got any advice for them?
2 things. Don't take no for an answer. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it. Don't. I mean, use me for an example from Little Falls, New York. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Come on. You know what I mean? Okay. Yep. Secondly, my dad always told me, if you're not the chief, you're an Indian. And all Indians are the same. His point was, don't backstab Coach Bill to get ahead with Coach George O'Leary. Don't backstab Coach Paul to think you're going to move up one step in Coach O'Leary. I'm using George for an example.
Right.
Don't, because you're an Indian. You're all Indians. Now, you may have different responsibilities and you might have different titles, but the chief, he's the guy. And you ain't the chief.
Right.
When you become chief, then you can do all those things, and you can, you can judge who's good, who's not good, who you need to replace, who do you need, bop. But when you're an Indian, you're all Indian.
Right. And, you're all in the team. That's
exactly right. And I can honestly say, on all the staffs that I've been with, okay, in all my years of coaching, there's only 2 guys that I wouldn't give you 10 cents for. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you their names, all right? But I just didn't like the way they were, okay? And all the other guys, all the other coaches were just good down from all parts of the country. Were just not only good coaches, they were good people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And if you don't think players recognize that, you're sadly mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, good point, Coach. You can't fool the players, man.
You try and bullshit a player, especially in the NFL. If they think you know what you're talking about and you can help them and make them better by correcting, okay, and coaching, they'll do anything for you. But as soon as they think this guy's full of crap, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, you're done. You're done. You're done.
Exactly.
And I was fortunate.
That's the way it should be, Coach.
Yeah, and that's not always the way it is, but that's my opinion, and people say, well, geez, did you ever want to be a head coach? Of course I wanted to be a head coach, but I knew deep down inside, as the clock ticked and as the calendar turned, I was 1 year further away from being a head coach. Now they're 35 years old.
Yeah.
Hell, I didn't get started with George till I was when I went to Georgia Tech, I think I was, 19, I was probably late 30s. Yeah, something like that, So anyways.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
No,
success doesn't equal comfort or something. I just love that about you, Coach.
Yeah, don't equate comfort with success. Because a lot of times, like I said, I could have stayed at Syracuse forever and never got the satisfaction.
You got to make yourself uncomfortable, whether you're a player or coach. You got to risk it to get the biscuit, right?
Yeah.
One more thing too, Paul. My wife never traveled. She stayed here. She worked in the Syracuse school district. She raised the boys, but she was always very supportive. And I used to call her when I was changing jobs, and I said, geez, I took another job, and she'd go, well, where are you going now? That was basically it. And I remember when I came back from Oakland to the New York Jets, my kids, and my parents were happy because I was in New York. Well, I lasted there 1 year, and then Mike Holmgren called, and I was going to Seattle, and I remember I called her, and I said, well, I took another job. And she goes, do they have a team in Alaska so you're going to get farther away from us? I said, close, we're going to Seattle.
Wow. That's a tough.
What a great sense of humor your wife has, man. Kudos to Miss Casullo, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Putting up with your shit, Bob, and raising the boys, raising Jamie and the boys.
Just think about all of them. I mean, coaching in general, you're 90% of these guys are moving within 2 years. So that's the whole gimmick. That's the whole game right there.
Yeah, I moved 9 times, Bill. In my career, I moved 9 times.
Right.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Well, that's one reason that, I had a chance to go into college coaching after I got done in the NFL, but they were working 80 hours a week for $23,000 a year, and I would have never seen my kids. So I went the other way. Yeah, I went the other way and decided not to get into the rat race. I didn't think, I didn't think my wife wanted to move that much.
Paul, you know what the irony is today?
What's that?
Both Rocco and Jamie, they visit with college coaches as they come through the school. The problem today with coaching, they're making more money than they ever thought in their lives they could make, and they've got zero time to spend it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They have no I couldn't do it today. No. We always had time off. Not much. Don't get me wrong. You know, when the season was over, everything at some point in time shut down for a week. So you got a week. And then in the summer, okay, you work, and then you usually had 3 weeks off. So in the course of a year, you'd have 4 weeks off. They don't even get that today. No. But they're making more money. They're making more money. I mean, my biggest salaried year ever in the pros, nobody would even take that today. Nope. They'd say, I ain't working for that.
No.
You know what I mean? Nope. But they also got no time to spend it.
You got no time to spend it. You're right, Bobby. You're right, man. The old days are over, and it's a new era, and it's a grind. It's a grind for big money, and that's why maybe you could do it for like, I don't know. Do it for a few years, make all the money, and then get out. Maybe I don't know.
Paul, when I recruited Marvin Harrison at Syracuse, you want to talk about NILs, okay? Well, in those days there was no NILs, but everybody knew who the culprits were, for lack of a better term. Right. And Miami at that time was the cream of the crop with Jimmy Johnson and then with Dennis Erickson. So it came down to Miami, Penn State, Notre Dame, Syracuse for Marvin Harrison. And the offensive line coach at the time for Miami has become a good friend of mine. And he kept saying, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Why are you here? Look around. What chance do you have? So when Marvin signed with Syracuse, he calls me. He goes, how much did you give Marvin Harrison? You had to give him a boatload of money to come to Syracuse. I said, in all honesty, I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I knew what you were offering him, and we doubled it, and I hung up the phone. we were lucky we had $25 to have lunch with.
Yeah. I was going to say, you were lucky. If he bought that, then you could sell him some oceanfront property anyway.
Yep.
That's beautiful, Coach. Hey, man. Hey, thanks so much for being on the show, Coach. What a blast it was.
I enjoyed it.
Coach, tell Rocco, tell the boys I said hi. Give them my best.
I will. And if you run into anybody in Baldwinsville, mention Jamie's name. He's interested.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I will.
This show, we honor the four-wheel drive that Jamie Kimmel, Timmy Green, Blaze Winter, and Bill Pendock. And
By the way, in Oakland, Jamie Kimmel, when I used to talk to Al Davis, Mr. Davis, he loved Jamie Kimmel.
I know he did.
Wow. He said, you guys at Syracuse, you produce some tough kids. And I said, yes, we do.
Yes, he did. Yes, you did. All four of those guys are tough, man. All four of them played in the league and played beyond college. And, it's all because of, the people that steered him, the champions. And thanks for being a champion to all those guys too, Coach. Thanks for that.
Well, I stay in touch with some of them. And, they made me what I am today. I didn't make them. They made me what I am today.
I hear you, Coach. Me too, man. I couldn't have done it without all the help that I got as well. Thank you for being on the show. We'll have to do a part 2. Go Orange. Roll Tide.
I'd love to. Anytime. This is fabulous talking ball. I love it.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
Hey, see you, Billy.
Peace.
Thanks again, Billy. Coach. Take care.
See you guys.
See you later. Bye. Stay tuned for these great messages. Man, what a great show, huh? Coach Bob Casullo. Long-time high school, college, and NFL coach. From small little town in upstate New York, Little Falls, New York. So I like his. Don't be comfort that it's not going to get you anywhere to success. You got to make it a little uncomfortable. Stay tuned for these important messages. Hey, if you like the podcast, man, share it, like it. Search Paul Tripoli Coach's Corner on YouTube, and make sure you catch it. This will be on tonight, Wednesday, and we'll replay it on Saturday. Have a great sports week, everybody. Talk to you soon. So long.
There's a reason why Hill Kelly in Pensacola is the #1 selling Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer between Jacksonville and New Orleans. While other dealers have taken advantage of a competitive market with higher prices, Hill Kelly has discounted prices to the lowest of the year. And Hill Kelly in Pensacola won't surprise you with excessive charges beyond the selling price. Come see why people from Milton, Pace, Foley, Bay Minette, Daphne, Gulf Shores, Mobile, and beyond are driving to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to buy their next new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. At Hill Kelly, the bottom line price and your satisfaction are what really matter. So before you sign, check the bottom line and make the trip to Hill Kelly in Pensacola to see what true local ownership can do for you. At Hill Kelly Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Highway 29 in Car City, Pensacola. Or shop online 24/7 at hillkellydodge.com. When it comes to bottom line pricing, nobody beats a Hill Kelly deal. Nobody.
75 years of service in high-tech today. It's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348. High-tech is a term often applied to advanced services and products in today's marketplace. And today, glass is much more than a simple pane of brittle, see-through stuff we hit baseballs through when we were kids. Glass is now a product with unique flexibility in both performance and application. And Pensacola Glass Company is growing right along. That's Pensacola Glass Company at 433-8348.
Are you riding around in a filthy vehicle? Dirty car no more. Visit Ronnie's Car Wash today to get it shining in no time. They have 3 convenient locations with another coming soon. The unlimited monthly wash packages start as low as $14.95 per month with free vacuums, multi-purpose spray and towels. Visit them in Gulf Breeze, Navarre, Fort Walton, and soon Crestview. Don't wait, wash today. Be sure to see Ronnie's Car Wash on Facebook to see the latest specials and discounts. You'll be riding and shining in no time.
That's you trying to fix the plumbing yourself to save a few bucks. Doing things yourself doesn't always end well. The same goes for insurance. That's why Auto Owners works with local independent agents who tailor coverage to meet your needs and offer discounts for life, home, car, and business insurance. Because sometimes you need a professional to get the job done right. That's simple human sense.
Barnes Heating and Air is a proud sponsor of Alabama football, serving the entire Pensacola community for over 50 years. Barnes Heating and Air is passionate about providing customers with world-class air conditioning and heating repairs, sales, and installation. Barnes Heating and Air is family-owned, insured, and committed to quality. For a free estimate, call 478-0141. Barnes Heating and Air is #1 in customer service with service calls 7 days a week. Call Barnes Heating and Air, 478-0141, and roll Tide.
My name is Steve Reynolds. I'm the manager and owner of Cordova Lanes, and we help keep your mind out of the gutter. Cordova Lanes is part of the community of Pensacola. Being here for 43 years, we've entertained more people than any other bowling center in the city. We self-fund for a living. Cordova Lanes is located at 2111 Airport Boulevard in Pensacola, behind Cordova Mall. Come on out and see us at Cordova Lanes Bowling Center. Thank you.